is he telling us over here? What is this Mishnah that he's talking about? He has 5 students, and each one of them, what do they do? Friends, when I say the name Rabban Yochanan Ben Zakai, it's one of those names that just pronouncing his name, just thinking about the person, you recognize that there are certain people that we are only here today, and we're only gathered tonight to have this conversation because of certain leaders throughout Jewish history who came at the critical moments, who made hard decisions, who led in very turbulent times, and who brought us to the point that we are right now, who are the secret of Jewish survival. One of those names we spoke about already, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, the redactor of the Mishnah, who recognizes that we need a suitcase, we need the Mishnah. But one of the greats is Rabbi Yochanan Ben Zakai. This Rabbi Yochanan Ben Zakai received the tradition from Hillel and Shammai. That puts him at about 70, 80 years prior to the destruction of the Second Temple. Rabbi Yochanan Ben Zakai is a young man, and he is studying at the feet of the great authors of the Mishnah, Hillel and Shammai. But there's an expression, there's a teaching that we know. It says that when the sea is calm, anybody can be at the helm. You need a captain in stormy waters, you need a captain. And Rabbi Yochanan Ben Zakai is the captain. He's at the helm in one of the most turbulent times in Jewish history. It's his calling or his placement in life, his moment to be the leader, to preside over the destruction of the Second Temple. To be the leader. He's over 100 years old. He lives till 120, like Moses lived on. And he leads the people at the time of the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash, of the Second Temple. Now, when the Second Temple is destroyed in the year 70, there's 2 things that are happening. The Romans lay siege to Jerusalem from the outside. But the truth is that inside, they could have survived for a very long time. And things did not necessarily have to turn out the way they did. The problem is that inside Jerusalem, the city is broken into factions. They're fighting within. And here is one of the most tragic stories in Jewish history. At the time of the siege of Jerusalem, the Talmud tells us that within Jerusalem, they are able to survive for years on end. And as a matter of fact, Rabbi Yochanan Ben Zakai was of the opinion, and in the academy, the Talmudic sages were of the opinion, that we are going to need to make peace with this. We are going to have to allow the Romans to take control. We're going to have to live with the Romans. The problem is that inside the city, there's another faction known as the Biryonim, the Zealots, who have absolutely no intent to allow Jerusalem to go to the Romans. And they actually begin a civil war inside the city. They're burning down storehouses of food. They're burning down storehouses of grain. They are creating chaos and they're creating tension and creating great need in the city because they believe that the only way to drive the people to war with the Romans is if it becomes very, very uncomfortable in the city, if it becomes unlivable. And self-inflicted by this group of Jewish people in Jerusalem known as the Biryonim, there's now a famine in the city. It's terrible. It's terrible in the city. And here the Talmud tells us one of the most consequential stories in Jewish history. Sid, are you able to read on where it says Gittin? You see where it says Abba Sikra?
Abba Sikra, the head of the thugs of Jerusalem, was the son of Rabban Yochanan Ben Zakai's sister.
So here you go. So Rabban Yochanan Ben Zakai is the head of the academy. And as I shared with you, the Rabban Yochanan Ben Zakai, as we'll see, believes that we have to make peace. We have make peace means to say we have to learn to live with this situation. Rome is going to take Jerusalem, and it cannot be fought off. It can't be fought off. His nephew Abba Sikra is the head of the thugs. What the Talmud calls them the thugs, the Biryonim. Some others call them the zealots. But any other, so as would be, it's his nephew. So here he goes and he sends him a message. Go ahead. So because the famine is so bad, he sees children starving in the streets. He can't take it anymore. So go ahead, read, please, Sid. Yeah.
All right, send him a message. Come privately to me. He came. Rabban Yochanan said to him, until when will you do this and kill the world with famine? He said to him, what should I do? Since if I say anything to them, they will kill me.
How realistic, how often does this happen? That the head of the Biryonim, the head of the zealots himself realized that his own party, his own people have gone too far, but he can't rein them in anymore. Now the mob has become a mob, and even their own leader, who's inspired them to fight the Romans, recognizes that this is a lost cause, that there are children dying of starvation in the streets of Jerusalem, but he can't rein them in. He can't rein in the mob, right? This is the story of life. So go ahead.
He said to him, show me a solution for me that I should get out. I don't know if I cut out. He said to them, show me a solution for me that I should get out. Maybe there will be a small salvation from it. He said to him, act as if you were sick and have everyone come and ask about you, and then bring something purid and have it lay with you, and they will say that you have died. And have your students bring you out, and no other men should bring you out, so that we don't become aware that you are light, since they know that a living person is lighter than a dead one. He did this.
Okay, so what's the story over here? The story is that in Jerusalem, they don't bury the dead. Jerusalem is a holy city. It's a city of the temple. It's the city of God. And it's in the city of Jerusalem, the dead are not buried. As a matter of fact, in the city of Jerusalem, they don't even hold a dead body overnight. That's why if you've ever seen in Jerusalem, there'll be funerals at 1 a.m. Somebody, whatever it is, they all night. In other words, they were late into the night. Somebody passes away. They don't keep a body overnight in Jerusalem. And there is no cemetery in Jerusalem. They bury outside of Jerusalem. That's not allowed. And even during the Roman siege, both the Jews and the Romans honored this tradition, and they carried the dead outside of Jerusalem. And the Romans allowed a procession to come out to bury the dead outside of Jerusalem. So Abba Sikra, the head of the thugs, the head of the Biryonim, he tells his uncle, Rabban Yochanan Ben Zakai, he says, there's only one way that I can imagine that you'll get out of Jerusalem. The only way is if you fake dead. Fake dead? So what happens next? So here, Elise, you want to read? You see where it says he did this?
Okay, he did this. Rabbi Eliezer went in on one side and Rabbi Yeshua went in on the other side. When they came to the opening, the thug gatekeepers wanted to stab him. They said to them, the Romans will say, they stabbed their rabbi.
Who wanted to stab him? What happened was there's on both sides, there's gatekeepers. There's on the inside of Jerusalem, the thugs, the zealots, those who are passionate, who want to make sure that we go to war with the Romans. They want to make sure that no Jews are going out and making peace with the Romans. So they want to make sure that only the dead are leaving. On the outside, the Romans are sieging Jerusalem. So the situation is terrible. They're carrying out Rabban Yochanan Ben Zakai as dead. And there's the thugs, in other words, who are afraid maybe the rabbis are trying to get out, and they suspect maybe the rabbis are trying to make peace with the Romans. So they say, well, we got to stab him. So the Romans, they respond. They say, listen, we're going to show up with our great rabbi with a stabbed body. That's not going to look good. The Romans are not going to be impressed about what's going on inside of the city. Go ahead, Elise. Yeah.
The Romans will say they stabbed their rabbi, and then they wanted to jostle him. They said to them, they will say they jostled their rabbi. They opened the gate.
They opened the gates and he went out. So in other words, Rabban Yochanan Ben Zakai he's an old man, as I shared with you before, and he faked dead. Everybody, the city is in mourning, and he's carried out as dead. He's carried out as dead. They take him to a burial cave. They put him down. They leave. And Rabban Yochanan Ben Zakai arises from the dead. He arises from the dead, and he has a fateful meeting. He goes and he meets with Vespasian, who is then the Roman general who's overseeing the siege and who's overseeing Jerusalem. He circles around, he comes to the camp, and ultimately they allow him in, and Rabban Yochanan Ben Zakai, the head of the Rabbinical Academy, is meeting now with the general of the Roman army. Jacob, you want to read where it says he went out, not there? Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
He went out. He got there and said, "Peace to you, O king. Peace to you, O king." Vespasian said to him, "You have made yourself guilty of 2 death penalties. First, since I am not a king, and you have called me king, and also, if I am a king, why did you not come to me until now?" He said to him, "That which you said, I am not a king. You will be a king since
were you not a king?
Were you not a king, Jerusalem would not be delivered into your hand, as it is written, and the Lebanon will fall by a mighty one."
In other words, so Rabban Yochanan Ben Zakai says to him that we have a tradition that Jerusalem is going to fall to the mighty one. In other words, at least if Jerusalem is going to fall, it's not going to fall to just a little guy. Whoever Jerusalem is going to fall to is going to be a mighty superpower. And a mighty is a king, as it is written in Jeremiah, and his mighty one shall be from him. Okay, and the Lebanon can only be the temple, as it's stated, the goodly mountain, the Lebanon. So in other words, this is a reference to the fact that the temple will fall to a king, and if you are commanded here, if you're the commanding officer here to oversee the fall of Jerusalem, you ultimately will be a king. Okay, go ahead, Jacob. He says, and that what you said, yeah.
And that which you said, if I am a king, why did you not come to me until now? The thugs that we have with us did not allow us. He said to him, if there was a barrel of honey with a serpent wrapped over it, would one not break the barrel for the sake of getting rid of the serpent? He was silent.
In other
Rav,
words, Vespasian said that you guys should have let us in if you guys, so in other words, don't, okay. But here the story goes that he goes on and he says, by and by, you see, it was here, by and by, a messenger came from Rome. And they said, get up, the reigning Caesar has died, and the dignitaries, the Senate of Rome, has placed you at the helm. So as Rabbi Yochanan is with Vespasian, he learns that he is actually becoming the Roman emperor. He put on his shoes. This is a very interesting Talmud story. He says, put on his shoes. And he wanted to he put on one shoe and the other wanted to put the other one on. It wouldn't go on. He tried to remove the first one and wouldn't come off. You imagine he's becoming the emperor. He can't get his shoe on. What is this? He said. Yeah, so Rabbi Yochanan says, don't be troubled. It's a good tiding that has come to you. And the proverb says, a good tiding fattens the bone. So you can't fit your shoes. So Vespasian said, what's the remedy? So Rabbi Yochanan said, bring someone who it's hard for you to take and have him pass in front of you, as it is written, and a lowly spirit dries the bone. He did this and the other shoe went on. Okay, beautiful story. Why? What's the meaning of the shoe? That's it. We'll leave it for another time. Now, Alan, take over, please, where he said to him, where it says he said to him, you see that? Try to highlight it.
Yes, I see it. He said to him, and since you are so wise, until now, why did you not come to us? He said to him, didn't I already tell you? He said to him, I also already told you. He said to him, I am leaving and I will send someone else, but ask something that I can give you.
Here is the key moment. Rabbi Yochanan Ben Zakai meeting Vespasian. Basically, the Talmud doesn't tell us all of the context of their conversation, but obviously he's identifying and he's saying, listen, the people, the rabbinic community inside, we recognize that we're going to have to work with you. We're going to have to live with you. So, and they're going to, he said, well, so he offers him and he makes him an offer. And he says, ask something and I can give you. And this is the key moment. This is a fateful moment. He has the opportunity to make a request from Rome. And what is the request that Rabbi Yochanan Ben Zakai is going to make? Go ahead, Alan.
He said to him, give me Yavne and her sages and the line of Rabban Gamliel and a cure to heal Rabbi Tzaduk.
Okay. That's so now I'm going to just talk about this for a moment. Here is his request. He makes three requests. The first is, give me Yavne and her sages. Now here's the big question. Here's the big thing. When he has the opportunity, he's presented with the opportunity, he asks something from Rome. What should he ask? Should he ask that they spare Jerusalem? That they spare the temple? What should he ask? The first thing that he says is he wants to save the academy. Rabbi Yochanan Ben Zakai had already begun opening an offshoot, in a sense, a satellite branch away from Jerusalem in a city called Yavne, in an area which is referred to as Kerem B'Yavne, a vineyard in Yavne. And he opens a satellite branch where the sages come and where the Talmud, as we have it today, this is what we're learning right now, is developing and the conversation is happening and is being debated and being taught for generations. And he says, save the sages, or I should say that save the academy, save the space of Jewish learning, save the space of Jewish learning. That's number one. Number two, he says, and the line of Rabbi Gamliel. Normally, when an invading army invades, they kill all the kings and the local leadership and the local king. Rabban Gamliel is the descendant of David, and actually his son Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel was already killed by the Romans as a recognized Nasi, as a recognized leader of the Jewish people. But he says, just allow some of the leadership of the Davidic leadership to remain. Don't kill them all off. And third of all, he says, and have a cure to heal Rabbi Tzadok. Rabbi Tzadok was a great, great sage who prays for the Jewish people for 40 years prior to the destruction. He sees the impending destruction and he prays for the Jewish people. And he says, have a cure for Rabbi Tzadok. This is the faithful decision of Rabbi Yochanan Ben Zakai, particularly this first decision. This first decision of what do you save if there's a fire? If everything is going to be destroyed? If you can save one thing, what do you save? And Rabbi Yochanan Ben Zakai saves the Academy of Jewish Learning. So the Talmud actually debates this. Rabbi Akiva would read about this, the verse, he turns back the wise and renders their knowledge foolish. Rabbi Akiva said that he should have said to him, leave us this time. Rabbi Akiva said he should have, but he thought that, but Rabbi Yochanan, but the Talmud concludes and he says, Rabbi Yochanan Ben Zakai thought that perhaps that much he would not do and would then not even be a small salvation. In other words, he can only save something and he asks for what he can. And what can he get? He feels like if he can save one thing, if you can save one thing from the fire, you can save one thing from Jerusalem. What are you going to save? You're going to save the ability for Jewish people to do what we're doing right now. Can you imagine this? I mean, just every time that I think about the Rabban Yochanan Ben Zakai, I think about this moment, every time I tell this story, it literally gives me the chills. Because what it is it's just, what he's saying is the most important thing. If there's one thing that we can save from Jerusalem, what are we going to save? The ability to do what we are doing right now, right here as a community. That's the secret of Jewish survival. And you know what? Who was right? Who was right? Where is Rome today? Where is Rome?
He was right.
Yeah, Rome is asking the European Union for a bailout. That's what they are right now. Where are we? We are here doing the academy that he saved is here, right here, right here, right here on Zoom, right? This was the miracle. So now let's go back. Let's go back to the teaching of Rabbi Yochanan Ben Zakai, that which he taught us in Pirkei Avot. Now that you understand the man, you understand what he's saying. So now what did Rabbi Yochanan Ben Zakai say? Go back to that teaching. Rabbi Yochanan Ben Zakai received the tradition from Hillel and Shammai. And he used to say, if you have learned much Torah, do not claim credit for yourself. For such a purpose you were created. This isn't just a nice little teaching. This isn't just an idea. This is the embodiment of the life of Rabbi Yochanan Ben Zakai. This is what he stood for. We are a people of Torah. We are a people who are here to study the Torah, to take in its messages, to propagate it. This is why we were created. This is why we're here. This is the power, the incredible, incredible power of Rabbi Yochanan Ben Zakai. Now, the Mishnah continues and says, Rabbi Yochanan Ben Zakai had 5 disciples. And they were these: Rabbi Elazar ben Hyrcanus, Rabbi Shua ben Hanania, Rabbi Yossi the priest, Rabbi Shem ben Asanel, Rabbi Zah ben Arach. Rabbi Yochanan, used to list their outstanding virtues. Now we understand, what are these virtues? What is he talking about over here? We're talking about what does it take? He wants to identify, what is Jewish survival going to take? What do we need? So he begins. And he says, Rabbi Elazar ben Hyrcanus is a plastered cistern which loses not a drop. What does that mean? What does that mean?
He retains all the information.
Rabbi Elazar ben Hyrcanus, at this critical time, at this time of incredible upheaval, this fighting inside, fighting outside, the turmoil, the chaos. The temple is lost. There's starvation going on. There's Jews are sold as slaves, as captives, and who knows what. But to have the ability to maintain, to hold the Torah, to maintain the teachings. Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkenes is a plastered cistern which loses not a drop. All of the water that's put into it stays with him. Though we need the commitment and the integrity to be a reservoir of Jewish knowledge. Rabbi Yeshua ben Hanania, happy is the woman who gave birth to him. Very beautiful. Happy is, what is Rabbi Yeshua ben Hanania? The Talmud tells us that Rabbi Yeshua ben Hanania, when he was how did he become a great scholar? So the Talmud says when he was a little boy, his mother used to take him in a little basket and used to put him into the to the study hall, so he can absorb the sounds of Torah, so he can acclimate. So that becomes his natural habitat. So that as the syntax in his brains are developing, all these connections are developing. What are the sights and what are the sounds and what are the smells? What are the experiences that he's having? He's saturated with being in the academy of Torah. So Rabbi Yochanan Ben Zakai says, you know what we need? We need mothers who are willing to immerse, who are committed to immersing their child in Torah teachings, creating Torah environments in their home. Rabbi Yossi, the priest, is a pious man. We need a piety. What is piety, by the way? You know what piety is? In Jewish law, piety is when one does more than the law is required. In other words, there is what the law requires us to do. A pious person does what's called lifnim mishurat hadin. When somebody does something because the law requires him, so then he does it. He does the bare minimum, right? But when somebody does something out of love, out of commitment, right? So then he does it more than the law requires. More, he does because they want to give, they want to do. So the pious person does for Hashem, does for others beyond the call of duty, beyond the requirements, beyond the requirements. Imagine somebody goes into the diamond, goes into the diamond store and they say, it's my 25th anniversary. What is the required piece of jewelry? If you're looking for the required, you're not doing very well. If it's an act of love, it's an act of. So we need piety. We need people who act, who love God. Rabbi Shimon ben Asana is one that fears sin. Similarly, also, he fears sin. He doesn't just not do the wrong thing. He's afraid. He doesn't want to lose his connection with the divine. He fears sin. He doesn't want to lose that sense of connection. And Rabbi Eliezer ben Aruch is like a spring that ever gathers force. In other words, that Rabbi Eliezer ben Aruch doesn't only, what he learns, he doesn't just maintain, he doesn't just retain, but it grows with him. It develops even further. So here we have the great, incredible Rabbi Yochanan Ben Zakai, whose just name elicits this appreciation for being the leader of the Jewish people at this most chaotic time, at this most turbulent time, and at guiding us through it and saving the academy and bringing us together so that in the year 2021, we can be learning together on Zoom his very teachings and be committed. And he tells us and he says, here's the 5 things that you need. Here's the 5 things. We need the commitment to maintain the study. the commitment to maintain the teachings as they are. We need the parents to immerse their children in the Jewish tradition. We need a love for the work that we're doing, and a fear and a reverence from departing from it. And we need it to grow with us. We need to find and to innovate, not just to maintain what we've learned, but we need to innovate that even more. And finally, he finishes off and he says, what is the most important of these? He says, if all the sages of Israel were on one balance and Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanus on the other, he would outweigh them all. Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanus is the one who maintains the teachings precisely. And he says the most important is that we maintain the tradition, the integrity, that we don't lose the teachings, we don't forget them, and that they don't change in our minds, but we maintain them precisely as they are. Abba Shaul said in his name, if all the sages of Israel on one scale, the balance, Rabbi Eliezer ben Hyrcanus with them, Rabbi Eliezer ben Aruch on the other scale, he would outweigh them all. Rabbi Eliezer ben Aruch is the one who's able to not only maintain the teachings, but is able to innovate, is able to take them into the new era, to bring them and to explain and to find the way that they apply in a time that we haven't yet known, in a COVID era, in a post-COVID era, in a temple destruction era, a post-temple destruction era. That outweighs them all. So in this Mishnah, we have the entire story of Jewish survival, of Jewish history, of these great, great names that just mentioning them, we have this deep, deep appreciation for all that they did to make us and to make us realize that we're here tonight. Just going to close with this story, and I'll take questions and discussion. When I went to Jerusalem after we got married, my wife and I went, and we had it was a few months after we got married, went on a trip, and I was prepared. It was my first time in Eretz Yisrael. I'd never been there before. And I was prepared to see the Western Wall, and I was prepared to see the cave of Machpelah, and I was prepared to go to Tzvat. And they were all inspiring and very special, but I need to say that I was prepared for them. There was one thing that no one told me about. I didn't know that would be there, that impacted me in a very unique way. Now, as we're walking up to the old city of Jerusalem, at the bottom of the wall of the old city, there's a plaque. And on that plaque, it says, here fell, whatever his name was, Yochanan Goldman, let's call him, in the battle for the liberation of Jerusalem. And as I saw that, I thought to myself, I am walking here because he laid down right here. And that was a very powerful feeling. The responsibility, the appreciation, and knowing that we are walking here because of the greats like Rabban Yochanan Ben Zakai and his students who laid it all down so that we should be here and be able to continue to have this conversation. So next week, we will pick up on this discussion of the 5 students of Rabban Yochanan Ben Zakai. Tell all your friends that you cannot miss this class, and they should be here next week, next Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. I'm going to stop the recording, and I'll take questions. Just give me a moment.